Today, we're tackling the question, the one that keeps so many Canadians up at night. It's a huge financial decision that honestly feels more impossible now than ever before. So, here it is. Is it better to rent or buy your home? It's the classic debate, but in today's wild market, the stakes feel a whole lot higher.
And that's because in Canada right now, the advice our parents got, well, it might not work for us anymore. The game has totally changed, and the old rulebook, it's pretty much been torn up.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the new housing dilemma. Then, the dream of ownership versus the case for renting. After that, we'll crunch the numbers in a few different cities. And finally, help you figure out your best move. All right, let's kick things off with the new housing dilemma. We got to understand how the last few years have completely reshaped the entire market for everyone. So what's really driving all this? Well, David Alexander Brassard, the chief economist at CPA Canada, puts it perfectly. He says rapid population growth has taken over as the driving force behind real estate demand. What that means is, even when interest rates were jacked up to cool things down, this huge surge in demand just kept pushing both home prices and rents higher and higher. Okay, so that brings us to the dream itself, the dream of ownership. Let's weigh that classic Canadian goal against the very, very real hurdles that are in the way today. The traditional arguments for buying. They're strong. You build wealth, hopefully as your property value goes up, and you get that sweet, sweet security from a landlord suddenly hiking your rent. But on the flip side, you've got these massive upfront costs, decades of interest payments, and, of course, the never-ending bills for maintenance and taxes. But let's be real for a second. For most people these days, the biggest hurdle, the one that just stops the conversation dead in its tracks, is the down payment. So, how long does it actually take to save up for one? Well, on average, a Canadian buyer needs 4.2 years. That's over 4 years of saving every single penny you can, and that's if you can even manage to save anything at all. But get this, even that number doesn't tell the whole story. A full 30%, that's nearly 1 in every 3 recent buyers, needed a financial gift from their family just to make it happen. And we're not talking about a small boost here. The average gift from family was over $77,000. And if you're in a province like British Columbia, that number jumps to over 150 grand. Just wild. So what happens if you don't have that kind of help? Well, for a Canadian household with a median income, saving at a normal rate, it would take nearly 15 years to save for a down payment. 15. That one number, it changes the entire conversation, doesn't it? Which naturally brings us to our next section, the keys for renting. And we're not going to look at renting as just a backup plan, but as a potentially smart, strategic financial move. I mean, renting offers incredible flexibility, right? You can move for a new job or a change of pace without any huge upfront costs. The trade-off, of course, is you're not building any equity, and your rent is probably going to go up over time. But here's the biggest catch, and it's a big one. This strategy only works if you have the discipline to actually invest the money you're saving every month. Okay, let's get to the main event. It's time to crunch the numbers. This is where we see how your location, where you live, completely flips the answer to our big question on its head. I mean, just look at this massive difference. The average house price in Saskatchewan is sitting around $310,000. In Ontario, it's over $940,000. And in parts of BC, it's soaring past $1.5 million. The very idea of a single Canadian housing market is kind of meaningless. It's really just a bunch of completely different markets. So let's look at our first scenario, a big city like Montreal. A buyer has to put down over 54 grand and then pays more than $4,200 a month. A renter, meanwhile, pays just $1,950. Now, if that renter invests the difference over 25 years, the result is kind of shocking. Their net worth could actually top $1.9 million, beating the homeowner by more than $270,000. In a big, expensive city, renting and investing can seriously pay off. But now, watch what happens when we just change the location. Let's go to a more regional city like Drummondville. Here, the costs are way lower. The buyer's monthly payment is under $1,900. So after 25 years, the homeowner's net worth is projected to be over $722,000, while the renter-investor is just a little behind at about $704,000. In this much more affordable market, buying actually pulls ahead. So as you can see from the numbers, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. And that brings us to our final section, What's your best move? Because it really is all about finding your own personal equation.
And that's the real takeaway here. The right choice isn't about some national average or what your friend is doing. It depends entirely on your personal, your professional, and your financial circumstances, where you live, what you earn, and what you really want out of life.
And as David Alexander Broussard warns us, the game has fundamentally changed. He says our parents could buy a house in the city and save for retirement. Current and future generations face a more difficult decision. The trade-offs we have to make now are just so much tougher. It's become a choice between your location, the kind of home you live in, and your long-term financial security.
So that leaves us with the real question, the one you need to answer for yourself. Given the reality of today's market, which trade-off are you going to make?